Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Jerry Cooey.
I'm Deborah Nelson. Thanks for joining us.
And we welcome you to part two of what we expect to be many parts of the I Told You So tour. We're going to get a little bit deeper. I hope you enjoyed last week's show. Simply to educate you on your federal dollars at work. We went over everything that
all 15 items that the FBI wants from Team Santa Rosa.
Yeah, the 15 items that have been requested by the FBI, by Team Santa Rosa, and understood we didn't get into a lot of detail on it, but the same basic subpoena was also issued to Santa Rosa County, and I do want to say, in fairness to Commissioner Jim Melvin, and you might have seen some of the news reports, at least the media allowed Commissioner Melvin to speak, but the FBI also had an interest in the computer that Commissioner Melvin, which is in his office. However, the FBI made it very clear to Commissioner Melvin that they had no interest in any of his activities. Their interest was any information that might have been on that computer from previous commissioners. And understand, folks, I don't know what commissioner they might be looking at, because that computer basically has been there for many years. It could possibly go all the way back to Ira Mae Hewitt when she was sitting in that seat. But
now this is the second request from the FBI to Team Santa Rosa in recent months.
Right. We would remind you of in May, a subpoena was issued to Team Santa Rosa, and it was more geared towards the private prison,
the GEO prison,
the GEO Corporation, the Blackwater Correctional Facility, involvement by Ray Sanson, all of that kind of stuff. It kind of covered a whole area, and I want to, folks, let me take a moment to explain to you. You all may get tired of me talking about the importance of the Sunshine Law in the state of Florida. It is very important, folks. I want you to take a moment and go to the www.faf.org webpage, where you'll see yours truly. I am a brigade member on that.
Sunshine Brigade.
Sunshine Brigade. But forget about it. It's way bigger than one or two people, folks. If it weren't for the Sunshine Law, if it weren't for the First Amendment Foundation, who have given me great help and advice in gathering documents, were it not for an organization like that. So I want a little commercial in there. Go to the FAF website, learn about what it's all about, and make a donation, folks. If it wasn't for the effort of the First Amendment Foundation, folks, look, it costs a lot of money. And there are a lot of attorneys out there that do pro bono work, but a lot of times these cases get very costly. But folks, your access to what your government is doing is vitally important, and I'm fixing to give you an example of how important it is. The general population didn't know anything about a private prison until 2009.
Apparently neither did the Florida Department of Corrections. That's the scary part.
That is correct. So I'm gonna hold up a document, let you take a look at it.
It looks like a meeting agenda.
This is a meeting agenda, and
from Team Santa Rosa.
From Team Santa Rosa, where there was a meeting held on February the 27th,
2008.
2008. The folks that were listed on this agenda, and let me say this, just because they're listed on the agenda doesn't necessarily mean that they were there. The meeting was not open to the public, as was the normal venue of Team Santa Rosa, so I don't actually know who was there or not.
Back then they were not following Sunshine Law.
Right. I'm simply going to read you a list of what was on their tentative agenda. Representative Ray Sanson, Senator Don Gates, Gordon Gooden, Ed Gray, Hunter Walker,
Ed Gray is crossed out. We should note that.
Dick Baker, Tommy Tate, Jeff Mullahy, Cindy Anderson, Pat Lockhart, and Shannon Ogletree.
The last three were Team Santa Rosa employees.
Last three were Team Santa Rosa employees, and the topics of agenda was several items, but the last item on the agenda was prison funding support. And so I guess the question that, hits me in the head, if you and I, the citizens, the folks that pay for this government, don't know anything about a private prison until 2009.
And the government department that's in charge of
prisons
funding
didn't know about it.
This is a shadow government, really, that's operating, and talk about the shadows, Team Santa Rosa. I mean, they're basically deciding for themselves, well, we need a new prison.
Right.
Let's go ahead and open one up.
And $200 million is the price tag. While we're at that, and once again, Deborah makes great points, and I don't think it's ever we can never read this email too much.
Yes.
Folks, if you have any doubt about it, I'll hold it up for you. There it is right there. This is a email, and for the record, this email has been verified as to its integrity by the folks, by the county attorney at the time.
Oh, it's real.
Because there were some folks that actually wanted to accuse myself or Alan Isaacson of maybe doctoring this email up, but it is a true email. It comes from Alita Floyd on April the 4th, 2006.
And she's one of the county computer people.
She's in the IT group. It was sent to Tom Danhauser, and the subject is...
And Tom Danhauser was the
county attorney.
County attorney at the time.
The subject was Team's computer stuff. Tom, just wanted to let you know that we are working with Team Santa Rosa. So here's the IT department working with Team Santa Rosa to migrate off the county network to their own network in order to not be part of the sunshine requirements, since they are not a county governmental agency. Sounds like it is really the best thing for the agency to do, and we will help them with the migration. Now, interestingly enough, Tom Danhauser does respond, and he included Cindy Anderson. He said, Team may be subject to sunshine anyway, but it probably is best for them to be separate, as they are a separate nonprofit. Now, the importance of that, folks, is that's 2006. Here's the people that's supposed to be working for you. Here it is very obvious that there had been discussions. Why else would a county employee say, so that in order for them not to be part of the sunshine requirement?
Well, unless there's a background there, because there's a previous email where Cindy Anderson, who's the team director, is seems to be complaining about what she calls boo bears,
right?
Which I interpret to be you. And
I'm a boo bear?
And probably Alan Isaacson.
I hate that. I hate that I'm a boo bear.
Asking for emails and trying to paraphrase, stir up trouble.
Right.
And that was about the time that you had been requesting their emails from them.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, well, we don't want to be in a place where we would have to
follow the law.
Well, somebody else would be in charge of archiving them, and they would have no control over.
Right.
I would guess. I don't know for sure. They would have no control. I would guess over redacting information.
Well, considering that every email that is sent, and let me stop right there before I finish that sentence. Here's my humble opinion, folks. The computer that sits on the desk at any government agency, not just Santa Rosa County, at any government agency, at any arm of the government, anywhere on the planet, I don't want to hear anything about, oh, we have to redact some items because there's personal information on that computer. No, you get your check from the government. You use a computer that I pay for. You sit in a building that I pay for. You sit at a desk that I furnish to you. There is no such thing as personal information on your computer. You shouldn't have put it on there, and we, the taxpayers, aren't going to pay somebody to the expense of going through and redacting it off the computer. If you don't want your personal stuff aired, don't put it on a government computer. That's my little speech about that. Now,
and they all know that, by the way.
Well, of course
Everybody
they all know, but they still do it. The importance of the agenda that we discussed in the beginning, and I will add to that. Now, I did state earlier that I really didn't know who was at that meeting. Okay, well, there was another organization that also had an interest who might be at that meeting. So they sent a series of records requests to Cindy Anderson, and Cindy Anderson did what she's well known for, of slowing down. Are you sure that's what you want? What meeting were you talking about? They played the same thing with this organization that they played with me for 6 years, but I won, folks. The question was asked, was there a meeting on February the 27th of 2008, and you discussed prison stuff? And finally the answer was, well, yes, there was. And the additional question was asked, can you verify Ray Sanson and Senator Don Gates' presence? And it was verified. So it's...
finally, they years later verified it.
The meeting occurred. It happened. It happened behind closed doors.
And again, and this is, I can't stress this enough, this is a private group of, private entity that's discussing with, and I assume there was some talk with some people in the prison industry, the private side of it as well, the companies that make money off this. I assume there was something on that side as well, discussing, well, maybe we should get a new prison. And apparently the Department of Corrections, which is the agency that we the people oversee and own, knew nothing about it.
Had no knowledge.
Yeah.
Complete shock to them.
Unbelievable.
As a matter of fact, as some of this stuff is unrolled, folks, and you know, look, anybody can take a set of numbers and massage them any way you want them to come out. But it did appear that in the state of Florida, the number of needed beds in our correctional facilities was on a downward trend, had been in a downward trend for a while. You know, look, I'm not going to say could the state correctional facility maybe done it a little more efficiently? I'd say anybody would probably say the answer to that was yes. But to take such a drastic move to privatize a prison and
outside of public authority. Right. My God, outside of our government authority.
Right.
I mean, who do they think they are? Seriously.
Well, you know, so far they're getting away with it. So,
yeah.
I look at it kind of a two-faced thing. Number one and foremost in my mind, I find it completely appalling that in the United States of America, we are going to incarcerate a human being for whatever reason they might have done, or whatever deed they might have committed. I think it is unthinkable to put a human being, to incarcerate a human being for profit. Okay? We've got a for-profit private company whose vested interest is to keep more people behind their walls. As we have discussed in this TV show, in Pennsylvania, a for-profit private detention center was opened for youthful offenders, and when it was all said and done, 2 judges had received $2.6 million in kickback funds for making sure that that detention center stayed full of children. And add insult to injury, the parents of those children were paying part of the fee, and the state of Pennsylvania was paying part of the fee. So not only were they illegally incarcerating juveniles at a far greater rate than they should have, It was costing the parents as a parent. It was costing the parent as a taxpayer, and it was costing the state taxpayer dollars. But I'm happy to say that...
And they were sending kids to jail for very minor little things.
Right. And I'm happy to say that those two judges were found guilty. Between the two of them, they had to pay some $12 million out of their personal funds, and they're spending time being incarcerated. Now, folks, that is the danger of private for-profit prisons. Now, like I said earlier, did the state need to tighten up on their finances? Probably. Did they need to look for ways to reduce costs here and there? I'd say that's probably fair and reasonable to say. But to make the jump from state-run correctional facilities to a private for-profit operation, I can't get there. I will tell you very interestingly to me, and I hope it matters to you, at that state penitentiary that is in Santa Rosa County, Florida, you, I, Deborah, our best boy over here, if we hear about something that maybe occurred in that state facility, and it concerns us.
This is not the GEO prison.
Not the GEO prison.
Right?
I'm talking about the state-run facility. As a citizen, we can go ask questions. We can go to the warden and ask questions. If we're not satisfied, we can go to the next level up, to the Department of Corrections. Certainly they're not going to open the door and let you or I go down there and do an investigation, because it's not a safe place to be.
Right.
But we would have access in state-run facilities. I will give you a very good example that just recently occurred of what is wrong with a private for-profit prison. The state of Florida has a team, interdiction team on drugs, and they have authority to inspect all correctional facilities in the state of Florida. They went to a GEO prison at 2 a.m. in the morning, well, about 2:30 in the morning. They rang the buzzer, nobody answered. They rang the buzzer, nobody answered. They made a complete circumference of the outside of the fence. They shined their flashlights into the cameras. Apparently they made noise. They made multiple attempts to contact, and after about an hour and a half, they left. They reported to their supervisors that we did not gain entrance. The state of Florida allowed GEO to do their own investigation, and the response on the investigation was, we had a bad buzzer, and we're not going to tell you when we make rounds, because somebody might use that against us. Now, the interdiction team, while they were there for an hour and a half to 2 hours, there was not a round made between the prison itself and the outside fence. Okay, folks, that is the danger of a private prison. Go back to our first show. Jerry D. Cooey stood at the podium and asked the GEO manager, what happens if you have a jailbreak at the GEO prison? And his response was, we'll call the sheriff's department.
Exactly. It's a taxpayer subsidized contingency. It's a taxpayer subsidized contingency. Yeah. So we pay anyway.
Human rights, adamantly, 100%. If I haven't been clear enough already, let me say it again. It is a sin. It is morally wrong, it is ethically wrong to imprison human beings for profit. And we have already seen examples, we've talked about 2 examples right here, where it can be a problem. And let me assure you that the dollars are big enough that when you stub your toe and you do something wrong that might have really should have been 6 months in the state penitentiary, it might become a longer visit for you, because they're going to get $52 a day as long as you're there.
And there's plenty of crooked judges in Florida.
Well, that's my argument number 1. Now, argument number 2. No way, no how, and when you look and the things that the FBI asked for in that subpoena. It's not apples to oranges. Okay, the GEO prison basically gets to pick the prisoners that they get, If a prisoner in their care hits a certain dollar value on medical costs, they can kick them back to the state. Okay. Some of the things that the FBI is looking at is how this whole contracting thing occurred. Folks, I can tell you point blank that GEO, a for-profit private corporation, has zero skin in the game, folks. They even got their money back for the land that they bought up front.
Some of their money. Yes.
Some of their money.
Yeah,
the building has been deeded back right here in Santa Rosa County. That building has been deeded back to the state of Florida. We as citizens aren't even going to get property taxes from the for-profit private corporation. That building actually belongs to the state now. They have a very generous contract.
Yeah, what they do, where they make the money is they're contracted to manage the prison. They're the administrators of it, and so I mean, that can amount. It's millions right now. That can change every year. I mean, that can go up with the changes in the contract. I mean, the sky's the limit on what they can make off of it.
It just,
they got enough friends in legislature.
When you look across the board, and folks, look, me and several other people, we've been digging at this thing for going on a year and a half now. $200 million gets slipped in Tallahassee, Florida on Friday afternoon at 4:30. On Monday there's a vote, bang, the money is appropriated. All of a sudden it shows up in Santa Rosa County. Of course, all of a sudden, I say all of a sudden, obviously from a couple documents that we discussed earlier, Senator Gates and Representative Sampson obviously had some knowledge of it, or why would they have gone to Team Santa Rosa behind closed doors to discuss it? You know, I kind of find it humorous that Ray Sampson has been quoted in the newspaper recently of, I had very little to do with that. Yet he was at a meeting to discuss prison funding.
Well, and the appropriations somehow found its way into the bill.
Well, you know, once again, this falls into the category of I want an independent, third-party group of people, third-party group of people that has no vested interest in the outcome to look at this thing, and I'll be more than happy. Whatever the FBI comes out in the end of this, I'll feel pretty confident that you'll be pretty close there.
Well, and even if there's nothing to it, it does not negate the question of whether it's a good idea to privatize prisons.
Right.
That's still an issue that's going to be a problem for Florida.
First and foremost, and folks, look, you know, they're in the process right now as we speak. There's in the south end of the state, they're getting ready to take bids to turn over state-run facilities to GEO as we speak. Now, I do want to make one point. Me personally, my humble opinion, I do not oppose privatization in some cases. There are some places and some things that I believe that the private sector should be handling. Number one, the private sector ought to be handling economic development in Santa Rosa County. It shouldn't be Team Santa Rosa. That's one place where the private sector does better.
Well, you're saying without getting
without the government involved.
Yeah,
that's right.
Without taxpayer subsidies.
There are a lot of things that I agree with privatization, but in this case, I think it is morally, ethically wrong to incarcerate human beings for money, and two, I do not believe for 1 minute that if you compare apples to apples, when you rotate everything in, what is the security for the citizens around a private prison? What are the actual total cost? You know, opportunities. When you look at the whole thing, I just don't believe the private prison issue can stand up. And look, folks, we gave them the money to build the prison, the money to build the fence. We gave them $25 million to operate for operational funds. No skin in the game. How would you like to own a? You know, I've been thinking about owning a hardware store. Now, I want the government to buy my property, build my building, stock it with hammers, and I want a no-cut contract by the state of Florida that the only person they can buy a hammer from is Jerry's hardware store. And I want the state of Florida to do the maintenance on my building, pay the insurance on it, and not charge me any property taxes.
Now, they originally bought a piece of property, but then, again, as we said, they sold a piece of it. Then they sold back to the the state government.
That is correct.
That had the prison on it.
And you know, folks, I can't say it enough. Hey, I'm just a little fuzzy fella who likes to ask questions. I'm completely harmless.
Now,
but I've had some, not just only me, many people have had a lot of problems with this, and now we find ourselves, the FBI has issued subpoenas to Team Santa Rosa.
Yeah.
Not once, but twice.
Yeah.
This is the second pass.
Yeah. Now, that original meeting that you talked about that happened behind closed doors, Senator Don Gates was present at that meeting.
Right.
We caught up with him at the redistricting meeting earlier this year.
Yes, we did.
You actually asked him what he thought about all that.
Yes, I did,
stuff.
folks, and you're going to watch this video, and you need to pay careful attention to what your senator thinks about you. I'm Jerry Cooey.
I'm Deborah Nelson. Thanks for watching. Good night.
A series of subpoenas were just released by the FBI, and interestingly enough, the information that was subpoenaed from Team Santa Rosa, your name was in some of that documentation. Would you care to comment on the Geo prison?
I don't know anything about any subpoenas. I haven't been subpoenaed by anybody, but if anybody would like to serve me with a subpoena and get any information I might have, I'll be happy to honor that. But let me say again, no one has subpoenaed me, no law enforcement authority, no lawyer representing any side has asked me to participate in any discussion about Team Santa Rosa. But thanks for coming today.
All righty.
Sure.
Thank you.